snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
We can all get along, but there's no stopping. Ay, everybody's wrong, that's a real problem. Ay, they don't want to hear it, but they still talking. Ay, soon enough, we running out of options. Ay, this ain't gonna end till it's in the coffin. Ay, we ain't gonna be friends till we try to squash it. Ay, I don't know how we can make amends or we drop it. Snowflakes melt when it's hot, kid.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no, the forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you folks doing tonight? Welcome to HeartMind Expressions, the Fab Four. Tonight, going to be the Fab Two with me and Sue.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm your host, AlexSpielman, with my co-host, Sue McClure. And
guys,
we're back after a small hiatus, and we're here to bring you a nice hour of discussion. So, Sue, good evening. How are you doing tonight?
Great. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Back in the saddle and ready to go.
Yeah, definitely back on the saddle. It's been about a month-ish, a month and a half-ish. We kind of had a break here, so it's good to be back. It's just that so many things have happened, so we got a little bit of catching up to do.
Oh yes.
So I thought we'd kind of, give our sponsors some thumbs up here. I'd like to thank iEvolveTV for, just kind of letting us do this show here. I want to also thank IV Radio and the OC4 Radio, and I also want to thank Katie Kamara for letting us do this show. And I also, it's just that a lot of things have been going on, and I know that a lot of people have been, dealing with their inner stuff that's going on. And I know that, people, had trouble getting comfortable, having trouble, moving around and things like that, the types of clothing. Half of the stuff you buy on the market is, made in such a way that, it's not comfortable. So, it's just that, so I actually think it's actually really, really good to wear different types of clothings that is absolutely totally used. So for a Savvy Clothing Line, I want to thank for that, they're, sponsoring us. So be comfortable, Savvy Clothing Line. So Alex, I kind of want to get into some of the things that are going on that we need to catch up on, especially, they've been very quiet on the stuff about the election. They've been very noisy about on all kinds of illnesses that are floating around and things like that, and inner and outer personal things as well that shouldn't be talked about. So there's a lot of stuff that they're being noisy. So one of the things that I think that we need to pay attention to is the stuff that's being quiet, the stuff that's not being said. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is the stuff that they want us to talk about is stuff that is relatively irrelevant to all of us, or is meant to scare us. So, like, they'll talk about the whole Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, the court case that went on for over 2 weeks, and then they also they all had their whole all those wonderful elite powwow, had their nice powwow over in Davos. Now they want to just make everything a technocratic dystopia, as they do every year, except this year they like to make it even more sinister than they used to. It's like listening to Dr. Evil in an Austin Powers movie. They talk about taking over the world and all these other things.
I think it's better because they had a record 1,500 private jets, that arrived there, and to discuss about our carbon footprint.
Meanwhile, each one of those jets are probably producing more greenhouse gases, as they like to call it, than any one of us would probably be able to make, within a year of using an automobile.
Yeah.
So.
Or happily eating a lot of bad burgers. Either way, it's ridiculous.
It's a textbook. Why you talk about the speck of dust in my eye when you have a plank in your own, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, Hollywood is being Hollywood.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll talk about them, but let's talk about the actual interesting, important stuff that's been going on. And one of the few things I definitely, we were talking about the other day. We weren't here, obviously, but I know you and I were talking off camera and in a different setting about how they had the World the World Health Committee Congress, and how they were trying to vote to potentially cede sovereignty from the United States, which was actually brought up by the resident in chief.
Yeah.
Apparently, countries don't like to vote away their own sovereignty. Okay, I never would have thought that was going to happen, but apparently it does. I'm being sarcastic.
Well, actually, a lot of the countries actually didn't realize what the fine print was. That was the problem. One of the things that the 8 families are very good at doing is making something sound like a wonderful idea, brilliant, genius, perfect solution. And then when people actually take a bite of it, well, it's just kind of like Snow White with the apple. Yeah, drop. Right. So it's amazing how it works, but it works. And I do hear what these 8 families have said, and on the surface it can sound wonderful, but everything is either mirrored the opposite of what they intend to say or what they intend to do, their intention. Yeah. What is going on, but a lot of people are not going to catch on to that because that's just too deep at thinking. They just want to hear the surface of how wonderful their ideas are, and they go for it. Yes, on the surface, for example, getting rid of your guns sounds great. If nobody on the face of this planet had a gun, we'd be all safe, right? But at the end of the day, you can get an honest citizen to possibly give up their gun, but you're never going to get a criminal to do it. So so then we got a problem.
Yeah.
So, so that's why it wouldn't work, because they're going to hire the criminals to police the streets for them.
Right. And what's funny is that, firearms are the great equalizer. You may have a man, maybe, 6'2", 280, fully jacked. And then you have this, little, little young lady, she may be, 5'4", no more than maybe 120 pounds. And if she has a Glock, if she has an AR-15, she can defend herself, just as well as anybody else could with that same thing. But that's not even the reason why we have firearms in the first place. It's meant as that final option to defend yourself from a tyrannical government.
Yeah.
That it's not about hunting. It's not about sport. It's not about recreation at all. It's meant to defend ourselves if it ever came to that point. That is the reason why they want to disarm us in the first place, is because they know that if they ever were to do that, they would have to pick off every single person individually, because most people, if they have their guns, they are not going to let those things go because they've trained how to use that thing, and they're willing to protect themselves to the death.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. So, if the First Amendment fails, you got the second one going for you.
Exactly. And what's funny is that, you have places like Australia, Canada, which Canada just
Canada's just now. I mean,
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just killed guns in Canada. You can't buy, trade, sell, transport in or out of the country. You can't do any type of transaction whatsoever that has to do with a firearm at all.
Yeah.
They just lost their guns. And here's another funny thing is that Australia gave up their guns back in the 90s, right? And what happened? When all of a sudden, we had everything happen, what happened?
The government took over. Yeah, the government took over, and now they have something called concentration camps now. I believe New Zealand did the same thing. I believe many parts of Europe has done the same thing, and now Canada. So definitely in California has already been, trying to put away the guns. They even put away. They're definitely decreasing the gun and increasing the crime. So now they had made a rule where they said, hey, you know what? If you get raped, don't call, don't talk about it. Nothing we can do. And that just sounds horrible.
So, it's tragic.
But now they're definitely trying to make crime more, I guess, legal, if you want to put it, which is going to show that there's not a lot of chaos in society, definitely.
Yeah. It's really kind of, I think probably I think the most interesting comparison that I like to make when it comes to this has to happen, I believe it's in England, where in England, this is several years ago, they actually introduced knife control. Yeah, like actual knives.
Yeah.
Like the government literally mandated how knives would be sold and purchased because they got rid of firearms. Most crimes were being committed, like violent crimes, were being committed by at knife point.
Yeah. And
so now all knives have to be inspected by the government for how long it is, how sharp it is. In fact, there were actually ad campaigns all over the place in the UK about how you have to be smart with knives. And this even goes into culinary knives. This is not just like combat knives. We're talking about like steak knives and butter knives and paring knives and butcher knives and just basic knives.
It's ridiculous.
It's a slippery slope that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. But I saw those ads. It was like, what? And being a culinary grad myself, I thought that was completely ridiculous. What are they going to do? They're going to have to actually take a steak and put it in a blender so everybody can drink it then.
That sounds terrible.
That's what I was imagining when I saw the ad.
But another thing, another thing that people keep up, they're keeping quiet, has to be some of the more recent information that came out of election integrity last few days.
Yeah.
The two major things came out. One, there has Greg Phillips and Catherine Herridge, I believe. They have been going around to the alternative media and they're doing interviews and stuff like that, and talking about how they're dealing with geofencing and all the information about that. And one of the people Phillips was being interviewed was Patel Patriot, who is most known for his Evolution series of writings on Substack. So I actually was watching his most recent Power Hour, not this one that just happened, the one just prior. And he and his co-hosts were just milling through the questions and answers from that interview. And there were a lot of just hints about what's going on. They were talking about how there would be trails behind the scenes within the previous administrations and in the current administration and stuff like that. So I think the biggest game breaker or biggest boom that we got had to do with who is responsible for elections. Now, you would think it would be the election commission or the board of elections or stuff like that when it comes to election machines. No, apparently some of the people who are responsible for elections and making sure that they're safe and secure are the same people who are currently being accused of malpractice.
Wow.
For example, several federal election commissions have authorized people like Smartmatic, like Dominion, and ESNS, all three which are major election machine providers. They all have voting machines. They were all granted the ability to secure their elections. What happened?
Well, looks like from what I understand, the people that were in charge of securing it. Now, if you want something to be secure, what has to be behind it is absolute honesty. That's one of the first things is honesty that has to be behind just anything secure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have somebody to come in your house and, watch your house, right, while you go on vacation, house sitting, well, in order for your house to be secure, you're going to have an honest person do that job.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're going to go through your jewelry, your money, your safe, everything. So it is security, number one, has to go with honesty. When that is out the window, now you have dishonesty. If you have dishonesty, then they can do anything that they want. Whatever sneaky thing their mind comes up with, they're going to do what we call is fraud. Then they can rig the machines. And this is not by accident. They're doing this intentionally. They're doing this deliberately. They have bosses that they have to answer to, and that's why.
And it's just, it goes with the old saying of a fox protecting the hen house.
Yeah.
But it got even worse.
Unless the fox is vegan. But anyway.
Yeah, give me a fox that's vegan. Last time I checked, foxes were carnivorous.
Yes, absolutely.
unless it's well, never mind. It actually got worse because we just got a report from CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which was developed by the Trump administration after the 2018 midterms. And remember how the news and CISA and all these other people, these talking heads, were saying how this was the most secure election we've ever had?
Yeah, they definitely were drumming up false advertisements.
Well, guess what the report just said? It said Dominion machines could be manipulated if it's hacked. What have we been saying for months now? That exact thing, that these things can be hacked and manipulated if given access to them.
We were called conspiracy theorists.
Sue, do you know where I can get some more of these conspiracy theories? Because I'm running out of them because they're all becoming true.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm running out of popcorn. I'm crunching kernels right now.
Oh my God, your poor teeth.
It's okay. Would have been the first time. But it's just like it's the people who are in the know and people who are educated in what's going on and people who are willing to research these topics, they knew these things ahead of time. There's always that slow drip. The train only goes as fast as the slowest train or this cart, right? So if the caboose is going super slow, the train's only going to go so fast. Fortunately, so there we go. So we have this report about the different election systems. We have the issue with CISA, and what will happen about this is just this right now just makes it so that we have to make sure that 2022 is secure. And I think that 2022 is going to be very interesting because now this evidence is out. This information is now available to every single solitary person.
Well, and if we actually have, if we have enough that we can go voting in droves, I believe, just my opinion, But I believe that if we can literally, righteously, not illegally, stuff the ballot box with honest votes, and there's tons of us going out to vote, they won't be able to do the fraud so easily because we're just going in too much, too fast, too hard.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to quote unquote stuff the ballot is just to increase turnout.
Yep.
Most places, when it comes to
The
elections,
honest
turnout
way to do it.
turnout is invisible most times. We're talking, there are times when elections are 30, 40, rarely do you see a 50% turnout. I mean, imagine if you had a 60, 70, 85% turnout. There would be no way to do that.
Yeah.
No way whatsoever, because there's no way you're going to be able to get a 15% margin on certain things. It's just at that point, it's nearly impossible to just time that perfectly. If you have a 40, a 30, 25, no problem. You got more than half of the votes right there you can do.
Yeah, so the election integrity is extremely important, and it is connected to what's going on down at the border.
Yes, yeah. One of the things that Greg Phillips was talking about was you remember how many times they talked about how, there's 1 to 5 million illegal immigrants in the country? They were saying something like that ballpark.
Yeah, I also remember how they were saying that once they get released into the United States, that's it. Game's over. We can't find them. We can't do anything about it, which is also a lie because they gave each one of them a cell phone.
Geofencing right there. You can use geofencing right there. By the way, that number is not 1 to 5 million. It's anywhere from 30 to 50 billion.
Yeah.
And more coming over every single day.
Yeah, they're just literally pouring in so fast and so hard that even the people that have to check them at the border, they're swamped. They're overwhelmed literally to death. And you can see constant amount of videos of them lining up waiting for buses to pick them up.
Those buses are paid by the U.S. government.
Yeah, our tax dollars.
They're not just regular charter buses. They are literally paid by taxpayer money. That means every single person paying taxes is paying for that. Millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So
you're paying for it's kind of almost like, and probably not the best example, but it's kind of almost like you are literally getting a bill of millions and millions of movie tickets that bought at a very large theater. You have no idea who's going to be there, but you got a heck of a bill for it.
I mean, you are literally paying with your tax funds the way they're doing things, human trafficking. There's no other way.
All tax dollars definitely supporting human trafficking. Our tax dollars are supporting the criminals, rapists, drug dealings, everything, even including the drugs that are coming in.
Yeah, it's just, it's just.
We're actually paying. Our tax dollars are actually being used to kill our very own citizens here in the United States by these same bad people. Now, I'm not talking about the people that have been flooded into the United States. I'm not saying they're all bad. Some of them are definitely just normal individual families, but the fact that they came in illegally already kind of puts them in a bad light. But I'm saying that they're pawns. They're just simply pawns that are doing what they're told.
Yeah. But if we shall move along, if you don't mind, we could be talking about this for hours.
Yep.
I think the next thing we wanted to how to do with June, what month it is, and how we're all talking about how wonderful it is, and how every multinational corporation here in the United States will change their avatar to a wonderful rainbow color. But,
do we actually want to talk a little bit about the history of the rainbow itself, the original rainbow from the Bible?
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. Sure, why not?
So if I remember right, of course, the first time the rainbow was really mentioned so much as in the Bible was after the flood of Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
And the ark wasn't flooded, the earth was. So For those of you who are familiar with the story, we won't bore you with the details, but you know, so after the water receded and they used a dove to see if there was land coming around, right? And I remember after the water dried up enough and they were able to kind of land the ark, so to speak, and be able to get off of it and look around and everything. We remember a rainbow being mentioned.
Yeah.
So that was God's promise to never flood the earth again.
Yeah.
Now, what was he flooding away?
Oh, a lot of, I mean, they don't talk about it too much if you go by the current canon of the Bible. They don't really touch about it in the Old Testament too much. But if you go to like the Book of Enoch and other lost books, quote unquote, you can learn that humanity was not the only thing around at one time. We had the Nephilim, which are the fallen angels, the giants, and they were literally tainting the bloodline of humanity. Sounds familiar?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was that God told Noah to build the ark with his sons. And I wouldn't be surprised there were some angels there, because let's be honest, he wouldn't be able to do it by himself. I mean, I think angels may have been there helping him out. Built the ark. It was Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives, and 2 of every animal. And they were in this ark. The world flooded, and no more Nephilim.
Yeah.
It was a reset. Another word we're hearing very often, a great reset that happened back then. We're dealing with a reset today. Interesting.
Yeah. Only this time, who did they want to wipe out?
Don't know.
Yeah.
But
so
interesting synchronicity, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My theory is that they want to now. It's kind of almost. This is just my theory. I could be totally wrong, but back then, during the story of Noah, as they did this so-called Great Reset, as to put it, they were getting rid of certain unsavory characters that were messing up Earth. Now it looks like it's maybe, I don't know if any of those unsavory characters survived or if there was any ancestors of unsavory characters, but there has been records left around somehow, somewhere, about what really happened. And I would imagine that anybody of similar races got ticked off, and they said they were going to get back at us for surviving. And so now it's our turn to have our butts wiped, as in the Great Reset. And that's why on the Georgia Guidestone, they wanted, our race down to 500 million.
Mm-hmm. Which is not going to happen. I mean,
yeah.
There is a reason why they say God wins at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this doesn't have to be, Christian or Jewish or anything like that. At the end of the day, God, goodness, love wins every single time. Because negativity just can't handle that type of frequency at the end of the day. It can only sustain it if it is leeching off another thing.
It's they show it all the time in stories. If you see in stories, movies, television, TV show, books, you name it, they talk about how it looks like the bad guys are getting the upper hand so easily. That's because the bad guys are constantly taking shortcuts to try to get whatever it is that they want. Some bad guys are patients, but and it's just that it looks like a lot of time when good tries to get the upper hand or tries to win, they lose. But a lot of times the good can be patient. Sometimes good will have to take the long way around, and sometimes it's going to take a while. But as far as I know, good wins.
Good wins. And that's part of the story. That's a little bit of the story of the rainbow right there. So this month, I know, as I was saying before, a lot of corporations are changing their logos to the rainbow. This month is actually very important, as last month was, because last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's something that I don't think is dealt with with the severity that it should be. Mental health is extremely important, and I think we
Yeah,
need
it
everybody to get.
actually has to do with the rhythm of your body, and people don't
Yeah,
realize that.
yeah. So this month, the original name for this month before Pride really became prominent, and I have personally have no problem with people and their own personal lives and whatever they want to do with it. That's all them. But prior to that, this month was known as National PTSD Awareness Month. All right. And that's important when you consider what PTSD is, what happens to people who have it, and the type of care that is necessary for those people who are stricken with with that ailment. There are people who have had serious reactions because of these things, and it you know it takes a strong person to help another um, deal with the trauma that another individual is dealing with. And that's another thing I'm thinking is happening everywhere, right? Not just one place, but everywhere. They're trying to inflict trauma on every single person, no matter how that looks.
You don't have to be the military or anything. It has
No.
to even right now we're dealing with the trauma of what's going on with our families, our children, our home front. Look at
Society,
you
the
can look at
world,
look at the gas
everything.
prices. Everything that they want to do is to inflict some sort of pain on us, and it messes you up because it keeps you awake at night going, well, let's see, for gas prices, for example, well, I can't really afford the gas, but I have to find a way to afford it in order to get to work. I have to get to work in order to pay the bills. And they're constantly in a state of catch-22s, if you will.
Yep.
And it's the catch-22 is getting tighter and tighter to the point where, the people are having
They're
trouble
trying to,
affording just to go to work and,
they're
keeping up with
trying to
car
put everybody.
payments. Yeah.
Yeah, they're constantly trying to put people in a state of over alert.
Yeah.
They're
It's like
constantly.
survival modes.
Exactly. You're in that
Yeah.
fight or flight mode, constantly, and
And it becomes a habit in our minds because we have to
yeah.
do this every day.
Hmm.
That can cause all kinds of trauma, especially later down the road, because it not only causes trauma for the adult, but it causes trauma for the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because especially if the kids are old enough to see when things were comfortable
Hmm.
before things got uncomfortable, they can see the difference. Trauma is when, especially when mom and dad have to say, we can't afford to eat this way anymore, or we can't afford to do this anymore. I'm sorry, 90% of the time, we're just going to have to be home. We can't go to events. We can go to anything free, but we can't go to anything that costs. I can't drive around and take you here, take you there. I can't be a personal chauffeur. We have to save gas for me to go to work. If any of those things are familiar, then
I mean,
what we're talking about.
there have been many times when I was growing up. It was, hey, it's peanut butter and jelly today for dinner, or it's macaroni and cheese, uh, or was cold cuts or something like that. Something super cheap,
Yeah.
because you know I remember seeing my parents struggle. We were dealing with things paycheck to paycheck at one point. Thank God that I'm not dealing with that too much anymore, and seeing my family do a lot better. But it's tough. It's mentally draining.
Yeah.
Seeing people literally on their knees because they have this. They don't know what they're doing. Not that they don't know what they're doing.
Well, we're
They
not
don't know
used to
what to.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't know where to do or how to do it, because any resource they had was all of a sudden exhausted.
That's why there's a lot of training videos that keep coming up all over the internet world of how to survive by your own wits, by your own resources and everything. So
And
a lot of those videos are good and some of those videos are fraud. It just depends. Use your own discernment.
I think, if anything, this has taught us that we have to be able to rely on ourselves, our surroundings, and our neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, big box stores and major retailers, they're not sustainable. If we have our own, if we have the ability to take care of ourselves and the community, and like we used to with community gardens, with everything being done locally,
Yeah.
things would be a lot better.
A long time ago, there used to be grocery stores almost on every corner, if not every other corner. It was walkable.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everything was walkable. It was right there. You know, you didn't have to go very far. And now they made everything that requires you, unless you're lucky to be in that area. Usually those apartments cost crazy amounts of money, or those houses cost crazy amounts of money. It's intentional, in case you're wondering. But you know, they made society in such a way that you basically have to use a car in order to get things to work in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the start of the human noose, if you will. And unfortunately, you know, now that they cranked the gas prices up, you know, it's gotten bad. But this is a type of PTSD people can suffer from. You know, we need to have the understanding also with each other, what each other is going through, because the life that we had, you know, 5 years ago is different than the life we are having now. It's just simply changed.
Yeah.
And we do have the power to change it back, at least change it back to where, you know, that, you know, the abundance is around once again. But we're going to have to be able to use our own wits and our own skills to create these abundance. We can't ask the government to do that for us. It's not their job anyway. It's ours. So when we see that people are suffering from PTSD, especially from the military and the war and everything that's going on, we need to try to have more compassion for these people and, you know, come to an understanding that they went through a great deal of hell. And so it does cause, and now, you know, since everyone has gone through their own kind of hell, it's getting worse. But, you know, that's how we need to unite together more instead of do the, you know, you're none of my business. We should kind of be everybody's business and look after each other. We do have cell phones now. We have technology to connect, so we should connect.
We have a means to do so.
Yeah.
And, you know, and nothing is, you know, it's all about intention at the end of the day. Nothing's inherently good or bad. If you have a good intention, it usually is good. And I'm not saying that every decision is going to be easy as well. But at the end of the day, good intention is much better than doing malice.
Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. So, you know, we talked about the PTSD, and now we can talk about some of the stuff that's going on in our society. And the ones that are most vulnerable to PTSD right now are children. You know, there's a lot of things that are being done to children, whether they are getting the poisonous medicines, whether they're getting the poisonous foods, whether they're drinking poison that is coming out of our tap, breathing it in. And now they're trying to do everything they can to poison the mind, which is very, very susceptible. These kids are very vulnerable to having their minds poisoned, because once you can mess with the mind very well, it can end up being permanent, very hard to get rid of.
Yes, it's terribly difficult. Yeah.
So, you know, it's just that I just don't think that this particular event that's going on this month, however the populars, how they're changing the logos temporarily. The companies are going woke, and you can do whatever you want with your company, but I just don't think that you should have the hands on the children and aim it here towards the children. I don't think they should be in those particular types of subject that has to do with the rainbow flag. I think a lot of it is grooming, and I believe a lot of it's definitely um, very, very negative type of grooming. And adult grooming should not be transferred to children. That's just my opinion.
That opportunity, that's opportunity. It's ringing.
Yes,
But yeah,
absolutely.
it's what's interesting about what's going on is reality. The powers that were realize that they can't go after the adults. They can't go after the teenagers. Now they gotta go after the children. Children are vulnerable. You know, they're not. They don't have the defense mechanisms that a grown adult has. They haven't learned them yet. They're still malleable. They still are manipulative. And by darn, they're going to try to do it. I mean, it was Vladimir Lenin who said, was it, give me, was it, give me 3 weeks and I'll plant seeds in the children that can never be unsown, something like that. Which is exactly what you're seeing. Plant seeds in the children and they will never be unsown. So, I mean, it's just harrowing what we're seeing and what lengths they would go. And the worst part about it is it's in plain view of every single person. It's not behind the screen anymore. It's not, you know, not behind the
Definitely
curtain.
not hiding it. They're definitely not hiding it
It's
anymore.
we don't have to worry about Toto pulling down the screen anymore. We're seeing the Wizard of Oz for what he is.
Yeah.
And
And
it's not
that's
pretty.
why DeSantis put these anti-grooming laws in. You know, I mean, that's you know, you just shouldn't, in my opinion, shouldn't groom
It's
kids and they're trying to normalize some form of sexuality to children. And I absolutely do not approve, but here they are, they're doing it. I mean, just not too long ago, they were having some kid dressed in some sort of a transy type, I guess, outfit or whatever it is they were doing, and the kid was dancing and they were throwing money at the kid or something. They're trying to normalize all of these types of behavior. They're trying to normalize getting kids involved in anything that adults can do. And there was even an art gallery of what it was a couple years ago of a naked guy, and there was a mother and a daughter, and the daughter could go up to the man and basically use him. He was being used as what they call moving art, which moving art back in the day is usually just like a piece of wood that of a person, and you can move the arms and legs however you see fit. They made children's toys like that before, but this is a live grown man, and you can decide how his arms go, where his legs go, how to, which way to turn his head, and things like that. Basically, having a kid play with a naked man. Um, then they're normalizing these things constantly to the point where people say, "What? It's just art." What? The kids are just having fun. They teach you to say these things to make people feel comfortable and they can sleep at night, rather than for saying what it really is.
The inner machinations of a crazed individual. See, let's be honest. This is the reason why they tell you to be 18 years or older for these things. They have to. It's a law. They have to do this. Mature content, 18 years or older. And now we're allowing this to happen to children and saying, oh, it's for educational reasons. It's for art reasons. It's for cultural reasons. if you were to
It
do
doesn't
any of
matter
those
what
things,
the reasons are. It's still going into their head.
you have to be 18
Yeah.
years old to view that type of content in any normal situation, any adult content whatsoever, 18 years or older.
Yeah.
But now we're trying to normalize that for children, and most children don't even have the single idea what that stuff is. You ask most children, they won't even understand it whatsoever. It's just, it gets me overly emotional when I talk about this stuff. It's just
It's extremely, it's very
what
disturbing that our
what
society has come to this.
would compel somebody to even consider that towards children? Okay.
An absolute, sorry, I'm going to say for what it is. If you are actually supporting this sort of thing, you're a pervert. Simple as that. You're messed up in the head, pervert, get help. I'm sorry. I am bringing the hate mail. You guys can send it to me. I can take it. But it's extremely perverted. But these are agendas behind the curtain. And we're talking about the 8 families. They do this with their family. They do this for fun. This is normal to them, but they're trying to normalize it on us now.
Yeah. And we just have to make sure children are children at the end of the day. Children are children, and they're allowed to explore the world with the innocence of a child.
And I definitely would like to keep it that way. So let's switch gears a little bit because it pinches a nerve. Let's you wanted to talk about Sussman.
Oh yeah, Sussman. So we had Michael Sussman, who was one of the attorneys for the Hillary for America campaign, and he was just put on trial and was acquitted in DC. Now you have people, they're doomsayers. Oh my gosh, he was acquitted. Whatever are we going to do? Type of situation. Not so fast, Beaker Boy. Everything's actually okay. Okay. And here's why. Durham got stuff on record. This stuff is now in court records. Right? We have people like Mook, who had admitted that Clinton had signed off on this stuff, literally putting her in the crosshairs. There is no need to go through any other small potatoes anymore. We can go right for the jugular because we have a sworn testimony on this. This is in the court record. So, yes, he may have been acquitted. In DC, DC is notorious for its corruption. Notorious. Imagine what you could do outside of DC. In fact, the next court case is going to be very different because it's going to be located in, I believe, Northern Virginia. And that's going to be the case against Igor Danchenko, who is a literal Russian spy who was working for the same campaign. Ooh.
Yeah, that's going to be some
There
good
you go.
popcorn moment.
So now we have those sworn statements under oath from the penalty of perjury. And they can bring that type of evidence back into every single case from now until forever.
Yeah.
That's how important this is. So yeah. Sometimes you have to sacrifice. What's that?
Go on, continue.
I was like, sometimes you need to sacrifice the pawn in order to go for a king. Yeah. If you're going to go for that checkmate, sometimes you got to sacrifice some pieces in order to get to checkmate.
Yeah. Wow. And, just so that some of those you're listening, when they said that Durham has it all, he did. He likes to play a fun game with the bad guys. He will stand there and make a statement, say, oh, you know what? I should check you guys' phone records. And all of them start deleting their phones, cover up the ketchup. He already had the phone records a long time ago. He was just getting them to scramble because it's fun. You know, it's a game that he's been playing for quite a while. He would already get the records to everything and then make a comment about it. And then they go through the trouble of trying to cover it up, but it was already too late. He already got the info.
Yep.
So it's been fun watching him do that. And it's been fun hearing the announcements of the different things that they're going to do and watching the bad guys scramble to try to cover up, run papers to paper shredders, delete emails, delete phone records and all that stuff. And we're like, you guys are a little too late.
Well, what's funny is that he has it all. Durham already has it all at the end of the day, right? And those people who are deleting those records and shredding those papers and burning those items,
that just gets added to the evidence.
That's a mission of guilt.
Yeah.
Right there. We could once again, we have geofencing, we have metadata, we have Space Force. Remember, Durham is a special prosecutor within the government, which means there's government resources you can use. You can use the NSA. You could use you could use Space Force. You can use the DIA.
Yeah.
Heck, you could even use FBI resources if you wanted to. But here's the funny thing is that with Sussman's acquittal, you can now go after him for something else.
Yeah.
You know what I think I saw a few other people bringing this up. You know what I think would be the best charge you could put on him and everybody else who's doing a lot of these things? Take a guess.
The best one that you could put in.
The best charge. What charge can you press on them?
Well, right now they were talking. I don't know. Right now, I actually get a kick out of when they were talking about like what they did to Capone about the taxes right now or something.
The best charge they can use on all these people, once all these cases are said and done, a RICO case, a RICO charge. Because right now we have
you can use that as a stepping stone for the biggers.
Exactly. Because I mean, you even had Bill Barr, the former Attorney General, twice over. He's been Attorney General twice in our U.S. in history. Once under George H.W. Bush, the other time he was under President Trump, and he literally said that stuff that Hillary Clinton stated recently. And this is an interview not that long ago.
Looks like brother is on. Hello, Alex.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Haven't seen you in so long.
I know.
I actually forgot what you look like.
I know. I'm currently going to bed early with Victoria, so we're not video ready.
So we're talking about
we had a tropical storm that we're experiencing, and it's called Alex.
Oh my gosh! Now I can just talk about that with that's pretty wet. Anyway, So we were talking about Sussman, and do you want to give your opinion on that?
Well, you know, it's like you got to just remember, it's like the game of chess. That sometimes going into it that you're going to lose, some of your pieces, and you strategically sacrifice a rook or a, whatever piece you're thinking of for the bigger fish.
Bishop.
Yeah.
And so, your bishop and all that, right? And so, that's what's going on here. He knew, Durham knew darn well that if the jury's going to be in DC, with how much compromise there was and how deep the swamp was. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about the connection with some of the jury members.
Yeah.
One voted for.
Yeah, it was literally a pride case. Anyway.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So, but it doesn't matter because he knew he would get off. But all that matters is he got enough evidence that was put into the public domain that he can use that as a stepping stone. And this isn't the first time Durham's done that either. He had a case a while back where he lost the case, but he used the evidence that was revealed in the court proceeding to pursue an additional case where he won. So he knows exactly what he's doing, and it's strategy, right? It's game theory. And
Yeah.
so, he can, and it's not as though Sussman is off the hook either. Just like Alex said, all of this is gearing up for obviously a RICO case. And, ultimately, we need to keep perspective. It's not even with the big boys. It's not even about doing or trying to pursue justice through the courts, because this is eventually going to have to go to military tribunals.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you just
Yeah,
think about it like a pyramid. You got to start at the foundation at the base and then move your way up. So
yeah,
he's right in alignment with where he needs to be.
definitely. I am so glad you're
But
on. I'm actually glad you're on, though. Spielman, you got your thoughts on this, and I thought we quickly, if you don't mind, quickly move to kind of the area that Dr. Bloom's in for PTSD. So your thoughts, Spielman?
Yeah, so we were talking about how this month is National PTSD Awareness Month, and how a lot of what we're seeing these last few months and years is trauma that is going to, every person's kind of dealt with their own form of trauma.
Sure.
And on top of last month being Mental Health Awareness Month, and this being PTSD Awareness Month, how we have now, this has given us a time to reflect and be mindful of those things.
Yeah, we know how the 8 families like to take anything that has to do with our military and just shove it sort of in the back burner,
Right.
quietly. So, but what is your take on actually PTSD and trauma? Because that is something we're all going through our own kind of PTSD, since what the bad guys are doing to all of us, especially even to children during the thing that has to do with the rainbow. So you want to start with the military and go on from there?
Well, so let's create some distinctions here, because it's a very large umbrella when we talk about the word trauma. So
Okay.
from like a clinical perspective, post-traumatic stress disorder is where you've got symptoms that last for a minimum of 6 months in a number of different clustered areas where there's themes, and the ghost of the past where the traumas occurred are still affecting you today. And you have re-experiencing symptoms like nightmares and flashbacks and intrusive thoughts and avoidance behaviors and all these different kind of themes. And then when you conceptualize trauma, it's broken into 2 categories, where you have now what they're calling big T trauma and little t trauma. So like a big T trauma would be a sexual assault or a car accident or being in the theater of war. And little t traumas are like, emotional abuse episodes that we experience, and kind of minor episodes where it becomes death by 1,000 cuts. And then if it happens over a sustained period, then we have, kind of beyond the DSM, which is the book that we use to diagnose, a form of PTSD that they're calling complex or PTSD or CPTSD. And so that's from like a clinical point of view. Now, more kind of in the public domain or colloquially, we have traumas that, like I tell my clients, that we've all been through. We've all been through a form of trauma, regardless of where you stood on the line during the Trump years with politics and the race riots and everything that was going on. And obviously with, C-19 and being in this global pandemic that touches all inches of the earth, that we've all experienced a collective trauma. You can go anywhere and have somewhat of a shared experience in terms of what you've been through. Well, maybe except for Florida, but almost. So, and, now you've got, minor, but still forms of trauma that are going on. Let's say, with gas shortages and inflation and
Yeah,
whatnot,
we're
like
talking about that.
financial traumas, that we've been through. But let's say, mothers who have infants and not being able to find baby formula, that's a form of trauma. And usually you see this in like, third world countries, second world countries, like, let's say Eastern Europe, where shortages happen all the time. But those are minor forms of trauma that you go through. So I think it's important for all of us, regardless of what classification you put on it regarding trauma, that we have practices that can be very helpful to kind of offset all the stress that we experience. because we carry all of that stress in our body. Our body becomes one giant repository, and it's just a dumping ground for all this stress. And if we don't deal with it to get that stress out, then it leads to premature aging, and it raises this growing body of stress that eventually tips the scales once it goes back beyond this threshold called an allostatic load. And that's where you have emotional stress leading to physical stress, which then shows up years and years later as cancer and heart disease and all these sorts of illnesses that we experience just because we've never properly dealt with what's going on. So it's important for all of us to take responsibility, just like we would for our physical health. If you see, if you feel a lump or you see an odd spot, that you go to the doctor and you get that taken care of. And that's physically. But what about on the invisible realm with mental and emotional and social stressors that are going? Still affects your health, And so we're in a world now where finally, at least, especially since COVID, that the awareness about mental health is, coming more onto the scene and being deemed as normal. I mean, I've never been this busy in my entire life. And I've got job security, sadly, in times like this, just because, the awareness about mental health and then, ease of access, relatively speaking, because it's all telehealth now. So that's nice. So, there's lots of practices that we can do. I think all of us, especially in like this truther movement, have been through traumas. I know I have. I know all you guys have, in terms of just being battle fatigued, having times where you've got to take a break from truthing because it's just so stressful and it's very taxing. And the information that you learn when you go down the rabbit hole, there's no turning back once you know this information, but it's very grueling on your soul, knowing some of the sick things that these pervs do and the agenda and how you see it everywhere and all of that, And so it's easy for us to get angry at the system, at the elites, at the sleepers, and we have to have ways of dealing with all of that stress because in this case, it's a battlefield, but it's a digital one. Yeah. But it's invisible, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, just like mental health. So a very helpful practice is practicing what's called self-compassion, where we can just take some moments where we can breathe and get in touch with our own self, our own heart space. And one of the suggestions that I tell friends and clients, and I do myself, is just taking your hand and putting it on your heart and just breathing in and out of your heart region while you think about something that's loving. Think about your pet or your child or your wedding day or a fond memory that you have, and just breathe in and out of your heart while you're thinking about that. That is so calming to our nervous system when we practice that. And there's research out of a facility known as HeartMath Institute in California, where they've done lots of different studies, and I could go on for eons about this, but what I'll say here is that they've measured how our heart gives off a certain frequency, just like our brain waves do. And when we can match with our brain the same frequency or rhythm that our heart is putting out by practicing these self-compassion exercises, we get into sync, which they call a state of coherence. And when that happens, our stress levels come down, our cortisol levels in our blood come down, we feel more grounded and centered, have a sense of well-being, and can move into a place of deeper compassion. And that is such an important balancing act for us, to feel that positive emotion and just marinate in that for a little while, to offset all of the stress and the anger and the anxiety and the chaos that we experience of just being alive in 2022. You know what I mean? So anyway, there's lots more to say, but those were just some initial thoughts.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely grounding helps. As much as they teach us to wear rubber soles at the bottom of our shoes and things like that, it's best if the weather is good, go outside and hit the grass areas.
Mm-hmm.
They intentionally made our city concrete for a reason. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't kidding when they did it. So definitely the first step is to just even stand outside in the grass and let all of that energy go into the ground. We are kind
Absolutely.
of
All
like
you
a
need is
big, we are around lightning rod for negative energy,
yeah,
shoot it out into the ground.
exactly.
That's one of the simple practices you can do. And at
Yep.
the same time, do the practice that Dr. Bloom has mentioned about putting your hand over your heart and, think of things that are relaxing and happy.
Mhm.
So
All
they're
you need
very
is
simple
2 minutes.
exercises. Yeah, they're very simple exercise. We're not asking. There's much more complicated things that you can do, but it takes simple things, and simple things can actually do a world of difference. I'm talking from experience.
Mhm.
We have a lot of things going on in our lives, and even just doing simple things is it's the same as even changing one thing out of your diet when you have a physical health issue. Change one thing, it can do a world of difference. So it's amazing how powerful the mind is. And once you find time, and you don't need much time actually, every day, maximum 20 minutes to work your way up to that. You don't have to bang on to right 20 minutes, but work your way up to 20 minutes and do simple things like going on the grass, put your hand over your heart, think wonderful things, then maybe sit down and meditate. And and the simplest meditation that I think is what we talk about, being in the presence, being in the now, meditation. Just what do you, all your five senses, what do you taste, what do you smell, what do you hear, what do you see, what do you feel, all those things. And you can just simply be in the presence and be in the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, very powerful. Very powerful. It's ultimately caring about how you feel and
Yeah.
making yourself a priority to be psychologically responsible. Just like we have to eat every day, we have to sleep every day. We do our best to stay in terms of hygiene, responsible for brushing our teeth and taking showers and things along those lines. That we now need to level up to mental hygiene, emotional hygiene, you know,
And part
catching
of
our
being
mind.
mental hygiene is actually also maybe pushing the people out of your lives that are, not very hygienic to our mental state.
Mm-hmm.
We may have to say, look, it's not going to work out. You're stressing me out. And that may be just even go as far as changing jobs.
Yeah.
If the job is basically eating you alive, probably not where you should be.
Yeah.
Our bodies is going to tell us when something sucks. You don't just keep doing it. It's the same thing. You don't smack your head on the wall and it hurts. And when it hurts, that's your body saying, quit doing that. But you keep doing it anyway. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
So in the long run. So, we have to be able to do what we call mental and spiritual spring cleaning. We may just, and sometimes we have to do that. We have the same thing. When we want to look after our physical body health, we take certain foods out of our lives, certain drink, certain habits. And it's the same thing. It's no different than when you were looking after your own mental health.
That's it. You got it.
I learned from the best.
Thank you.
So, Spielman, getting lost
Yeah.
thoughts.
I don't think there's anything more for to say. I think that was
All
summed
right.
up pretty well.
Should we close it up?
Yeah, I think we shall. Uh, Anything else, Alex, before we wrap up? Or are we good?
Let me think. No, just that, I've been watching a lot of X-22 lately and really getting back into it. And I notice, kind of like what we were saying earlier, that so many of us are tired and we're um what's the word I'm
We're,
looking for?
we're
Like just
war weary.
yeah, in like a resentful way, like why hasn't it happened yet?
We're,
And I get it. I fully get it. But when you kind of step back emotionally and you do your responsibility to recharge and you look at the bigger trajectory of where things are going, everything that Team 17 was writing about 4 or 5 years ago plus I mean, the deltas now in the past couple of months in particular are just so spot on that this is where like the time travel comes in. That when they said nothing can stop what is coming, they were looking at timelines and trajectories and all these sorts of possibilities,
Wow.
and it's all locked in. And now you see the dominoes finally starting to fall, you know, in a very concrete way. And so I
Yeah.
think if there's any time for hope for a future, it's now.
Yeah.
So when you see the kind of overt surface situations that can bring a sense of like, you know, woe is the plan, like with Sussman getting off, that you got to know that there's strategy involved here and they know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
I think it's just important to keep that
And
perspective.
I think it was really interesting when you start looking. You know, I think some of the I think one of the interesting things is when it comes to talking about Team 17, as we now enter the summer and then eventually the fall. Now, some of those earlier posts from 2017 and how detailed and how much of a revelation those are. Now, considering what we have now with Sussman and eventually Igor Danchenko and who knows what else is on that chopping block, all of a sudden, that thing where they talk about Clinton being arrested in October, it makes more sense because now we actually have a logical reason why that would happen. We had Mook sworn testimony saying that she was signing papers, and we have the former Attorney General Bill Barr saying that she was seditious. Sedition is one of the highest crimes in the land.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all you need is somebody to accuse you of that crime and press that charge on you. I mean, sedition is not even something that's easily done in the federal court system. That's something almost always that is done in the courts, in the military courts, just because it's such a high crime.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, you know, I completely agree. We have to go through every step before we get to the next step. We can't just automatically go to the tribunals.
Exactly.
So
We
that's
have
why
to go
that's
exhaust-
why 17 had said hold the line. They weren't kidding. They want us to hold the line because they knew we were going to see things that looked like it would suck on our end.
Oh, and then on top of that, within the next 30 days, the Supreme Court is going to be on its summer recess. And we still have not gotten that Roe decision yet. We just had that leaked paper. We have not gotten the final decision. And that decision may happen within the next 30 days. And we already have, I already been hearing buzzing of heightened awareness and alertness due to potential riots. We may see another summer of love.
Yeah. Yeah. There are
Oh
a lot
yeah,
of
they're going to
false
push a
flags that are
civil
coming
war.
in.
Make no doubt about it.
I mean, remember, they wanted us to forget something called the Insurrection Act.
Which
is, and we don't know how far this is going to go. I mean, they're desperate. They're so desperate. I think they already threw the kitchen sink. I don't know what's next, the drywall.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would be too far of a overstatement if I said that we are literally have been living for the last 3, 4, 5 years, maybe, a cold civil war.
Yeah.
Cold. And, you know,
it's true.
One thing, everybody, do not give up your guns. Please don't.
It's cold. It's cold. You know, we've gotten to the point where we've almost gone to fisticuffs. It's that small. I mean, we're talking like infinitesimally small. Sparks have gone off little by little, but nothing has really struck fire. We've seen sparks, no fire. They're going to try fire this year. I can assure you, especially with the midterms.
Oh yeah.
If they lose control of the legislature,
which they will,
they will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Game over.
Nothing can stop this. Every trajectory in terms of what's going on is so clear cut in terms of knowing that they're going to lose. Every poll. I just read today that there was in a small border town in Texas, a Republican Latino mayor outbeat a longstanding incumbent who is a hardcore Democrat. And, the Latinos have switched to Republican now, because if you're not hardcore woke socialist, then anyone who has half a brain, unless you're like a deeply ingrained, baby boomer and whatnot, but almost everyone has been like, this isn't cutting it for me anymore. And maybe I need to, we've got to make some change. So maybe I need to vote Republican. Let's just give it a shot. What do we have to lose? People are pissed. And the left, make no doubt about it. All these school shootings and everything else. And, we know from, CIA documents with MK Ultra and all of that, that they're going to push every single possible angle they can, including an attempt to civil war. Like 17 said, there will be no civil war, but they wouldn't say that unless they knew that the left would try to push it. So, and we saw what
they're
happened
constantly
in Canada.
hinting. They're hinting constantly when they talk. Look how much hinting they were doing, and some of it wasn't even hinting; was full out admitting at the World Economic Forum. They already had all these beautiful plans laid out for us.
That's right.
It's the Hollywood evil genius doing their monologue of, I'm going to do this to you, and then you're going to boil in acid, and I will laugh maniacally. That's exactly what they're doing. The villain is literally telling you their plan. They are monologuing to you.
That's exactly right.
This is a movie, if you will. Theater and actors must act.
Yeah, like the Ukrainian president. Hell of an actor.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of that,
Shitty president.
It's funny you're mentioning about you're talking about
Zelensky.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I was watching the news earlier today, and some of the news I have was from a certain blacklisted company. I think you know which one I'm talking about. That was just lambasted everywhere, and they recently put out a video that literally showed British media doing cinematography in what would be considered a battle zone. Like, why do you have actors? Why do you have prop guns? Why do you have a sound stage?
Did you see the video that was on CNN the other day where the camera fell off of the tripod?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice it slowed down at all? Did you watch that video?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So for those who haven't seen it, when they slow it down, it actually shows that there is a green screen, that it was a prop. And it shows kind of when the video is falling down sideways, but then points upward, where the green screen stops. Because it's behind the anchor was, the White House and whatnot. And so it's just like, smoke and mirrors. And at this point, we know 4 to 6% are lost forever in terms of waking up. But the sad part is we're not at the 4 to 6% yet. There's still 33% of people out there that say Biden's worth approving. I don't know where they get those numbers. I think part of it's a protest vote of like, well, I can't admit that maybe I was wrong. I shouldn't have voted for him, or that there's an alternative to Democrats. So I'll have to still say yes. But anyone who has some sort of like temperance about themselves will be like, this isn't the trajectory of where I want the country to be going. And it's sad that it has to get to this point, but this is how you wake people up. It's right at the precipice.
Yeah. Well, and they're gonna keep pushing.
They will.
One of the other things I don't know if you heard us earlier, but we were talking about you heard about the CISA report that just came out, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. I heard that there was one, but I didn't hear the details of it.
Okay. So the CISA report, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, it stated that Dominion voting machines are
Oh yes,
what's it called?
right.
Are vulnerable to hacking, which
Yeah.
is something we've been saying that for months. But it got
Yeah.
even worse because if you go, there was a the Patel Patriot interview where he interviewed Greg Phillips. Greg Phillips, I think his name is, for True to Vote. They were able to find out that the companies that actually were the ones that we saw that they stole the vote are the ones that the federal government have authorized to secure the vote. They have federal contracts like Smartmatic and Dominion. They have been instructed by the independent agencies that deal with election integrity and election systems to run those elections.
But do you notice this is the trajectory of how the disclosure works? It's always drip, drip, drip. It's no, this is a conspiracy theory. This doesn't really happen. And then the next step from there is, well, it's not out of the realm of possibility that one day this could happen, to, well, maybe there's proof that sometimes this happens, but clearly not in most or all cases. Then it goes to, well, this happens more than we realized. You see how it's kind of up in the ante, to, well, yes, it happens a lot, but it's not all the time, to, well, it happens all the time, but everything is still secured. Whether we're talking about the jab, whether we're talking about security with the elections, whether we're talking about who knows what, things that were going on with Trump, et cetera. You know, it's the same trajectory with the argument.
Yeah. And I'm very curious to what Greg was mentioning when he said something was going to go off in 6 weeks. He was very emphatic about that something would happen within 6 weeks. And that's around the time of Independence Day.
Yeah.
He said something is going to be
I'm
so
actually
important.
wondering if something.
He was saying that something was going to be so important that it would make 2,000 mules seem insignificant.
Wow.
Well,
Which
I know that I know
pretty
that
big.
they love. I know that the bad guys love their symbolism so much. They love everything to add up to certain numbers and things like that. It's very possible the 6th of this month something could happen.
It's possible.
Yeah. For
But
those of you who don't know what I'm talking
also
about,
showing
I
up.
mean, it makes it obvious and easy, but it's just we keep an ears open. But I mean, what number month is this month? And then there's the 6th day. And if you add the 2s in a year together, what does that add up to? So,
We'll
anything's possible. Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, but they love their symbolisms. Everything have to do with either numbers being mirrored, words being mirrored, or if they write something in the word, like what would they put something for Pride Month or something? I'm trying to remember what they did for the term Pride Month, and they actually had a word inside of there that actually made it very, very obvious.
Demon.
The word demon. That's right.
Demon.
Right in the middle.
Pride Month. If you get rid of the P and the R, DE, and then you go into month, MON, and then you get rid of the TH. So you get rid of the 2 on the 1 on the beginning and 2 at the end, and in the middle it says demon.
Yep. So.
And what were Nephilim? What happened with the flood? It was literally falling angels, which became the demons of hell.
Yeah.
There you go. It all goes full circle. It's almost as if we've seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we definitely have. Right.
But God wins in the end.
Exactly. And that's where we just have to keep our eye on the prize, that there's going to be more hiccups along the way, more things that we can't predict that can be very disheartening, of like, oh my gosh, well, why would this happen if the Patriots are in control, etc. And this is where we just have to, this is why balancing and paying attention to our mental health is so important, because it's resiliency, it's grit, it's looking past the short term and the emotional triggers that get us on the hamster wheel or the roller coaster, where we kind of rise up and we get really stuck on the highs when something good happens, and then the crash of, oh man, this isn't what I was expecting. And if we're not careful, we get stuck unconsciously on that rise and fall. So the practice here, this is why I love meditation so much. It's strengthening this muscle of observation, where you can step back and look at the situation without always being hooked emotionally. And that's a superpower once you understand that.
Absolutely. Definitely, yes, once you put it into practice.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you guys. I'm glad I could come on tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. And thank you very much, AlexSpielman, as well. So at least we got the two Alex, and Sue. So back together again at that. And I want to thank everyone for joining us, watching. What do we say? Like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next week. Lots of love to everyone.
Bye.
Take care.